There are stories that begin quietly on the edges of ordinary life, in places where no one expects grace to unfold. And this story began in a small-town garage, smelling of oil and old metal, where a mechanic named Luke spent his days repairing engines and his nights praying for strength to keep helping people who never knew how deeply he cared. And one cold Thursday morning, a woman named Sarah limped into the shop with a car that coughed and groaned as if begging for mercy. And Luke stepped out, wiping grease from his hands as he listened to her voice tremble while she explained that the car had been breaking down every week since her husband passed, and she was doing her best, but everything felt heavy and nothing seemed to work anymore. And Luke saw the shadows under her eyes and the way her fingers gripped the steering wheel as if it were the last thing keeping her upright. And he simply nodded and said he would take care of it, though he did not ask for payment because he sensed that her struggle went far beyond the failing engine. And as he worked under the hood, he whispered a prayer, asking God to strengthen her heart and show her she was not alone. When he finished, he slid a small handwritten Bible verse under the sun visor, one that had carried him through his own storms. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted. And when she returned the next day with tears in her eyes asking what she owed, he shook his head and told her the only thing she owed was to keep going one day at a time, because even the road that feels unbearable has a destination of hope. And she drove away, not fully understanding why her chest felt lighter. Yet the car broke down again the next week, and the week after that, always at the most inconvenient moments. And each time she returned to Luke, who greeted her with the same gentle smile, refusing payment and leaving a new verse tucked under the visor. And each time she read it alone in the driver's seat, feeling something stir inside her that she had not felt since the funeral. Something she feared to name because hope had once betrayed her, and she did not know if she could survive another disappointment. Luke never asked about her grief, though he saw it clearly, heavy as an unbalanced engine knocking against itself. But he continued repairing the car with quiet care, as if mending something deeper than metal. And Sarah began noticing little things, the way the shop light caught dust like falling stars, the way Luke hummed hymns under his breath, the way her heart didn't feel as hollow when she left the garage. And slowly the verses he left began to feel less like strangers' words and more like messages written for her alone. One afternoon after yet another, stall on the side of the road, she sat with her head against the steering wheel and whispered aloud that she was tired of being strong and tired of pretending she was fine and tired of being angry at God for taking her husband. And as tears fell, she opened the visor, and a slip of paper fluttered into her lap with the verse, "I will give you rest." And something in her chest finally cracked open, not in pain this time, but in surrender. And she prayed for the first time in months, not with polished words, but with aching honesty, telling God she did not know how to live like this, and asking him to show her a way through the dark. The next morning she returned to the shop, not because the car was broken, but because she wanted to tell Luke what that moment on the roadside had done to her heart. But when she stepped into the garage, she found him leaning over a truck, humming softly as usual. And when he looked up, she saw a warmth in his face that felt like sunlight after a long winter. She told him about the prayer she finally dared to speak and the peace that followed, fragile yet real. And Luke nodded with quiet joy, because he had been praying for her every day since the first time she walked in, holding her grief like a weight she could not set down. She asked him why he refused payment all those weeks and why he kept leaving verses. And Luke said he once knew the same kind of loss when his brother died, and he had wandered for years thinking God had abandoned him, until one stranger helped him without asking for anything and reminded him that mercy cannot be measured in bills or hours, only in love freely given. Sarah felt tears rise because she understood now that her repeated breakdowns were not pointless misfortunes, but moments that led her back to faith she thought she had lost forever. and she realized that Luke had been quietly repairing more than her engine. He had been stitching hope back into her life one verse at a time. Weeks passed and the car stopped failing, and Sarah began attending church again. Sitting in the back row with her hands trembling at first, but slowly lifting in worship as her heart healed little by little. And she often saw Luke there too, never making himself visible, but always offering a silent nod that reminded her she was no longer walking alone. One Sunday she approached him after service and thanked him with words that felt too small for what he had given her. And he simply said that God had already done the real work. He had only turned the wrench. But Sarah insisted that God had used his hands and his kindness to reach her when she was unreachable. And Luke smiled with humility that had been shaped by years of loss and grace. In time, Sarah began volunteering at a support group for widows, sharing her story with trembling strength, telling them about the roadside prayer that broke open her heart and the mechanic who fixed more than engines. And through her words, others found courage to seek the same light that had found her. And Luke continued repairing cars in his small garage, leaving verses for those who seemed to need them, trusting that God would place them under the right visors at the right time. And whenever Sarah stopped by just to say hello, he felt grateful to witness how far she had come from the day she arrived with a car falling apart and a soul barely holding together. Her life had not become perfect. Grief never vanished completely, but now she carried hope alongside sorrow. And whenever she turned the visor down, she kept every verse Luke had written tucked neatly in a row, reminders of the journey that led her back to faith. And she often whispered a prayer of thanks that some engines break again and again, not because they are failing, but because grace is patiently leading someone home. Welcome, dear friend. This is Faith Light Stories, where every story reminds us that God never leaves us. Please like, share, and subscribe. And if this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that mercy can appear in the most ordinary places and through the simplest acts of kindness, I invite you to share in the comments how God once used someone unexpected to lift you up, because your story may be the very spark of hope someone else is waiting for. Thank you for watching, and may God's light guide your steps today and always.